blink of an eye. And
Yeah,
we've got the OG coming up. Tell me, we got the OG here.
the OG. Yeah. So, Mr. Greg Lobsiger's in the house. That's right. Greg is the owner of Lorens Body Shop in Bluffton, Indiana. Some of you know that Greg was actually the initial reason we started this crazy positivity summit in the first place. He spoke out on social media for positivity. 15 minutes later, after I saw that post, I'm on a phone call with him, seeing if he wanted to be our first guest. And he said yes. And the Positivity Summit was literally born in that moment. During the first episode, right, the first episode we had Greg on, he shared some slides of him building a shop within his old shop. So he's literally building his new shop within his old shop so that he wouldn't lose any productivity, right? That was amazing. That's innovation, my friends. So good to see you, Greg. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, man. Good to see you. You're standing there in your office, and tell me what's new. You know, last year, right? You said your goal was to hit 5 million in a little country town at 10,000. Now, I think I'm hearing a rumor that you might be in the market for another location. Am I hearing that right?
Well, it's one of those things that whenever retirement comes, which it's not here yet, but when retirement comes, I don't want to live with that pain, the pain of regret. And so anyhow, yeah, I through some honestly starting to get a little bit bored. I'll be honest with you, and through some soul searching and prayer, and the most important thing was get permission from my wife.
Let's just be honest.
Yeah, and on top of that, in order to even go to I'm very happy with one store, but yet I have a very strong leadership team, and we're kind of looking at succession and so forth. And I want them to be able to win also. And they're even considering a partnership or partial between the two. And I said the only way that you guys should be partners, and in my opinion, partners for two things. One of them's dancing, but anyhow, I said if you're going to be partners, you need to scale. You need to don't be partners just for one shop. And
okay,
so, yeah.
So this is coming from your own team.
Well, yeah, it started with me, of course, because they were, hey, what's your plans down the road? And I'm 58. I'm not done yet, but life's very, very good. And we had a very strong year. We grew. Where net was highest it's ever been, and the guys made the most money they ever have. And so a lot of really good things. But yet
now he's just bragging again.
Yeah. What is this? Yeah. Everybody was struggling. We've seen claims countdown. Look, let's just double click on this for a second, right? Because you're in a small town. I mean, how big is Bluffton? Like,
it's 10,500 roughly, something like that. But
right.
I'll piggyback on the marketing folks. And especially like Mickey talking about Google and all that. We've got just under 1,000 5-star, not 4.9, 5-star reviews, and customer service. I mean, the customer experience is just so crucial. And I'm not going to lie and say we never have comebacks. We once in a while you have a comeback, but the way you take care of that customer, you'll have them for life. And another thing that the folks don't realize, and I know we didn't plan on talking about this, but I think it's important. When you work on like a company's truck, and they've got, say, a construction company, HVAC or whatever, and you want to, I won't say throw them in front of everybody else, but you really want to make a priority to, I mean, if you're going to do a 5-star with somebody, you want to do a 5.5 star with these people, because there might be 30 or 40 families involved there. And if you have a good experience with that shop, we've had several. We probably have 3 vehicles in the shop right now. Some of them are company vehicles that these people had a bad experience. They'll start rattling off. They rattle off all the bad experiences. And so if they ever have a bad experience in my shop, it's going to get rattled off at somebody else's shop. So we want to be, it's so important that these people have good communication, no surprises, exchange in abundance, where, they're paying us $6, $7, $8, $9, $10,000 on average. And give them that little extra. We're going to fix that door ding for free. Or
don't you find it useful though, Greg, to hear the pain points that your customers have had with other shops to make your experience better? I would find that useful.
Oh, 100%. I mean, sometimes they'll go rattling off names, and I don't need to hear that. But then we also will tell them, hey, this is the experience this customer had at these other shops. So we want to make sure they don't have that experience here. And you never know, it could be all kinds of different random stuff. But anyhow, I want to throw that in, that it's extremely important back to customer experience. Look at the cars that are in front of us right now. Look at the customers that are on the schedule board that are coming in, and those are the people. Those are the best marketing dollars we can spend. Is that make sure these customers had a terrible wreck experience, but they had a great repair experience.
I totally agree. I feel like people don't leverage the most valuable thing they have, and that's just the customers they already have under the roof out talking to everybody in Bluffton.
Right.
But I think that perpetuates in smaller communities in particular. One person has a bad experience. That seems to. I remember setting up for a hailstorm in this little town of about 10,000 people, and I did something. I had a weird pants or something. On the other side of town, within hours, they already knew about it. I'm like, how did you know about what we're doing? Like, it seems like word spreads so quick. So having that good experience spreads slower. In my experience, bad experiences probably spread faster. So how do you mitigate against that? Like, how do you protect it? Because bad experiences will happen. You said to get on it. How are you handling it when something doesn't quite go your way? How are you handling it so that bad word or bad press doesn't spread?
Yeah, look, I mean, if they call and say, "Hey, I got this issue. How soon can you get here? How soon can you get here? Or do we want to go pick it up? Do we want to provide them with a rental? But something's going to stay overnight or repaint or whatever, something crazy." What we want to let them know, and if we don't hear from them for a couple of days, hey, I'll get a hold of you the first of the week through a podium over the weekend or whatever, or my shop booster or whatever. And but they reach out to us, and but then even reply to them over the weekend and know that you care. My manager will do a great job doing that. But if you don't hear from them, then get back with them and says, hey, we want to get this taken care of. And if they come in and we actually I don't have a lot of them, but we have even just like a few Walmart gift cards. Give them a $50 Walmart card. And, hey, sorry for your trouble. Or we'll run it out back. We've got a gas tank, and if it's just 87 octane is fine for their car, we'll fill it up. We'll fill it up for them. Anything like that. All that little stuff.
It's huge.
Yep, wow. Good stuff. So, look, you're growing, right? And maybe you're going to add another location, maybe not. The wife's giving you permission, but how are you going to find more workers, right? This is something that I get a lot from people in rural communities. How do I grow a business if I can't find people in my community?
Well, quick side note, Dave, I'm in due diligence right now under a purchase agreement. So we're getting closer, but I got the staff of that shop. I actually have one of their workers working in my shop right now. So that's another discussion, but one thing we do is we have a 4.5-day work week. The guys work 7 to 5 Monday through Thursday, and then 7 to noon on Friday. So it's 41 hours. But I try to make it a point. Never say never, but I try to make it a point to not go steal somebody else's techs. I honestly prefer to not bring any veterans in. I prefer to. I like to build my own. It's really neat. I just told the guys this morning. It's really neat to watch people grow. As I've gotten older, the more I've learned patience and learned to. Again, you have to be a psychologist just about. But we had one guy out of a dog food factory, another guy out of a trash bag factory, a guy out of the Walmart tire center. But they have mechanical aptitude. But to watch these people grow is so rewarding. I'll word it that way. We do clock hour and a global production bonus, and we were still trying to catch up from January. It's kind of long story short. It's a moving target as we move in because we're looking at we're actually off of hours per day where we're at in our target for year end and so forth. Every hour on an estimate is worth me right now is around $175. And so anyhow, I won't jump into all that math, but there was one guy from the dog food factory and one from the trash bag factory were here late last night making sure they had alignment done so we can do calibrations this morning on one. That was part of their goal. And it's just neat to see those people grow. And also you want to be the best shop around them because you become a magnet. You become the go-to shop to work at.
Yeah, it makes sense. Man. So is this other shop going to be rural as well? Like you've kind of got a model that works. Are you going to try and repeat it?
Yeah, I don't know the big city stuff, but I do. I feel like I know the rural market. And so yes, that would be my niche. I guess I'll kind of word it that way. We're in conservative Indiana. There's a lot of farming, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And yes, and you want to go to a shop. You want to go to a market that there's a need. If it's flooded with shops, that's not something I'm really interested in. So this one just through the paint jobber. And it's funny is when the paint jobber gets wind that a decent shop is looking for locations, they brought me 3 more, and I'm like, whoa,
Yeah. It's an interesting time. So,
yeah, I don't know how much time we've got left, but I want to thank you, Greg, for the articles that you've contributing to like Fender Bender magazine. A lot of our clients find them very useful. You're very big on knowing your numbers. We've had some conversations around profit first and some of your philosophies around the numbers. But so many of our shops out there, hate to say this, they're still kind of running their business by the checkbook. I mean, we've literally met with shops doing 3, 4, 5 million a year from their checkbook. What positive advice would you have to give to shops like this that are out there?
I would say that, here's the problem. My grandpa, my uncles, all that, they did it for decades. You can run for decades off of the checkbook, but you're in survival mode. You're not thriving. And again, back to you don't know what you don't know. When you figure out how to understand your numbers, then you can learn, hey, I can tweak this, I can tweak that. This will help, paint materials GP or labor GP or whatever, fill in the blank. But the trouble of it is you can't just wish it into existence. It just doesn't happen. You've got to get outside help. And thankfully for me, over the years, and I think I told you before, I've spent a lot of money on mentors, and it's worth every dime. And I'm talking 400 grand at least that I've spent, and so it's been worth every dime.
And he knows the number he spent on that too.
That's right.
More impressive. All right, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Greg Lobsiger, the reason that we're here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Greg. You're true inspiration, my friend. Speaking of inspiring folks, man, I got a fun one coming up right now. So we've got Dan the Man Rollick coming up. So Dan is a really unique guy. He's been in the collision industry a long time, but he's also